Let's do it.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Setting up the meeting. Hello, hello. I believe we are live on Facebook, Ms. Lisa. Woo!
Yay. Woohoo.
Boy.
Good job.
I know. We are, and you know what? Good sign. It's 222 here.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
222. And we know that 222 means everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out just fine.
Yes.
And as we're reminded, you know, in the end, everything always works out. And if it hasn't worked out, it's not the end. So how grateful am I to have Lisa Tahir here on Rise Up Evolutionary Conversations, and how grateful I am that we're actually rising up on the conversation because we had a few challenges getting on the air, but we are here, and I want to introduce everybody to Lisa Tahir, who is from New Orleans, Louisiana, where she has become a licensed clinical social worker in 2000. And she expanded her practice to Los Angeles in 2014 and attained her second licensed clinical social worker license in California in 2016. She's additionally certified in EMDR level 1, Reiki level 2, and as a thought coach through the Institute of Transformational Thinking in Los Angeles, California. Lisa has a private practice, offices in both locations in Los Angeles and in New Orleans, and she lives between both cities with her cats, Jiggy and Baby. And Lisa is passionately committed to working with people to help them heal through all of the senses of the body by utilizing intuition, therapy, energy healing, meditation, Reiki healing, crystal healing, nutrition, sound frequencies, yoga, exercise, podcasting, writing, and teaching. She enjoys speaking on topics related to psychoastrology, which we're going to get into, spirituality, emotional health, physical health, and mental well-being. She hosts the popular weekly podcast, All Things Therapy, found on LA Talk Radio, of which I was very honored to be a guest.
You were.
And it's also on the LA Talk Radio, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, YouTube, also broadcasting from Pluto and Mars, all over, and other places where podcasts are found. Welcome, Lisa Tahir.
John Jacob, thank you and Rythmia for having me on Rise Up. I'm so delighted and honored to be with you and with our viewers and listeners today.
It is a real pleasure. I'm seeing here, if you please excuse me for appearing to be distracted, but I'm wanting to see if I can get our live stream up on my phone so I can interact with the guests, right? So we can get some guest interaction going on here.
That's cool.
I would like to see that. Let's see if we can make that happen. So while that's happening, let's do this. I know people are tuning in. And we have such a wonderful audience that comes to check us out because these conversations are also amazing. So I'd love to just start in with you, Lisa, and ask you first, you know, the thing that really excites me about spiritual growth and development is what I call the process of germination. You know, like we've all had this moment where there was an awakening in our lives and we wanted our lives to be different. And there was a tension between where we were and where we thought or we wanted ourselves to be in that process of expansion and unfolding. And I'm so interested in your story of germination and how that occurred for you.
It's such a beautiful way that you put that, because as I was thinking about our time together, I've been thinking of the relationship between emotional healing and spiritual development. And in my life, when I look back, they've really gone hand in hand, that as I've healed my emotions, I noticed that I've been more interested and open to spirituality and really seeing how they're one and the same. If you are open to that paradigm and that belief system, that spirit, the divine source is here to support us along our journey of healing. And I know that for myself, certain wounds and experiences really cut me off from spirit. And I think that's natural. When trauma happens, when abuse happens, when disappointments happen even, we feel cut off from our sense of belonging, of being a part of. We feel really fractured and fragmented, like I did as a younger person growing up. And my life has really led me to like in a beautiful way to people, places, and things that, and I've always been curious. I'm a super curious Gemini. I love seeing things from different perspectives. And being a therapist, I became a therapist because I really wanted to heal myself. And I think a lot of us drawn to the healing arts really do want to become healthier people, better people. And that's certainly true for me. So I don't know that I'm directly answering your question, but I feel like my emotional healing and spiritual development have really gone hand in hand. And I'm excited to offer that to clients and listeners.
Beautiful. So I love and I love the idea of the combination of the healing arts and our spiritual expansion and growth and development, because it is a matter of embodiment, right? Like the way that
Yes.
we embody. So where were you? Like, when did can you point to a moment where you say, well, this was my spiritual awakening, or this was the time where I decided what I was doing wasn't satisfying and I wanted to go in a different direction? Or was it sort of a clear, some people have that beautiful singularity of purpose all their lives. Like, did you always know this was the area you wanted to work in?
That's a good question. I've known from 5 years old. I scribbled a note at 5. I want to be a psychiatrist, not knowing what exactly that meant, John Jacob. And so becoming a therapist felt very natural. However, I did have kind of an awakening, and it's in my book. I share very authentically about a time period in 2006 following Hurricane Katrina, where I
Mm-hmm.
was so overwhelmed by the change and just losing my business, all of my clients, my family home in a day, being evacuated to a new city, that I fell into maladaptive coping mechanisms, drug addiction for at least a solid year, longer, in fact. And I really felt like it was a moment. And I talk about it in my book, where I felt like part of me is like, well, everybody's doing this. Like, there's nothing wrong with your turning to drugs to cope and self-soothe. And then another part of me knew that this is really dangerous, and that there's a point where addiction takes over. It wants a primary relationship with you. And so it was like I had this big moment of like, what are you going to do? And I realized I wanted to take responsibility for my behaviors, and I changed my people, places, and things. I started going to Florida by myself to surf. I didn't even know how to surf, but I bought some cheap board and just literally threw myself in the ocean, and, met people that ended up helping me and made some new friends. And it was kind of my pathway to healing through fitness. I've always been a fitness instructor, even through that time in my life. And a book called From Addict to Iron Man came
Mm-hmm.
across my path. Like, spirit often brings us what we need, like books falling off the shelves, literally.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure you've had that experience. And I became a triathlete, completed 3 half Ironman triathlons. And
Wow.
that really got me to transform, when in seeing that, like, we can choose, we can choose how we want to live. I really believe in personal responsibility, John Jacob. And so I
Yes.
had to take responsibility for myself back in 2006 and 7.
Wow. I love the authenticity, and I love what you said, that addiction wants a primary relationship.
Yeah.
That just phrase, compulsive behavior wants a primary relationship.
Mhm.
So, and this, there's other questions that I want to ask you, but you said, it's in my book, and I was like, let's talk about the Chiron effect. Please tell us about, this amazing book that you like. How long did it take you to write the book? How did this come to you?
Sure. It took on about 4 years in total to write. Have it just has started to ship out to people who have purchased it. And this book for me, and it's an offering to you. It's a
Mm,
paradigm. It's just an alternative paradigm of healing, of viewing our life experiences through a different lens of Chiron, who is the archetypal wounded healer in Greek mythology, and in Carl Jung's mythology, the archetypes. And what that really means in simple terms is
yes.
that we all have within us areas of vulnerability that we tend to hide from others. Like, we don't want people to know certain things. We have a hard time ourselves owning those areas of our personality, of our lives. We might feel some shame about those areas, like we're not good enough. And we could overcompensate in different ways to really in the extreme, cut off from those parts of ourselves. And in the unconscious, those thoughts and feelings of shame and disempowerment really start to drive our lives and create situations that then we're like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? And so my book is a way to really get in touch with what these core wounds, another way to think of it, our core vulnerabilities are, and heal them through takeaway steps that are practical, through psychology, through spirituality, through meditation. And that's what my book offers you.
So beautiful. And it's so in alignment with what we teach here at Rythmia. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we are all about the core woundings, and the way we talk about it with the medicine is show me who I've become. Show me who I've become as a result of that core wounding, that
Mm.
split that has me think I need to be something else in order to get my needs met. And to hide who I think,
Yes,
that
yes.
which I really am. And so, your work is so aligned with our whole intention. I mean, everything
Yeah.
about what we do is to work with this core wounding. Now, so Chiron is in Greek mythology, the archetypal wounded healer.
Yes. And it's also a planet.
Yes. Tell us more
Yes.
about the
It's
astrological
sure,
aspect.
of course. It's a minor planet and comet. That's its designation in astronomy, between the planets of Saturn and Uranus. And in our birth chart, it's Chiron, just like your sun in a sign, your Venus, your moon, your rising. There's Chiron in your chart. And I have an interactive website where you can pull up your Chiron and then go to my book and read what core wound that correlates to. And a lot of people are like, wow, Lisa, so you're presuming that we're predisposed to a core wound. And, there's no way around that kind of question or point. And so the way I say it and like to just speak to it is that in my work and the people that have read my book, looked through the lens of Chiron, it's been really accurate that somehow this placement really speaks main area of vulnerability that people are working with. And for me, it's helped me to just really focus my healing efforts to one main area. For myself, it's a wounding and my sense of value and worth, which in the past would cause me to people please or work
Mhm.
really hard to be loved, versus knowing that I'm worthy, that I'm valuable. And so many of us, I think, struggle with this, this concept of feeling good enough, not good enough, achievement. In our culture, we're so achievement focused versus being focused. And so I
Mhm.
found that for whatever reason, it's accurate. And again, it's just a paradigm. It's just an offering like that. I want to make your lives easier, healthier. And it's just what's really rang true for me and the people so far that have read and plugged in their information to this paradigm.
You know,
So what
I
are your thoughts?
I feel very absolutely certain that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what kind of life you had. We have experienced a core wounding. It could be something insignificant, like I didn't get held on time, or I didn't get fed when I wanted to as a child, or it could be something traumatic as abuse of some sort. Anywhere on that
Right.
spectrum, in my belief, we all have and go through by design a core wounding that is intended to have us experience this sense of separation so that we can go on our hero's journey and
Yes.
harmonize. In fact, my thought is all spiritual growth and development is the harmonization of apparently disparate opposition within us,
Yes.
the light and the dark, the
Absolutely.
good and the bad, the hero and the loser, I'm the
Right.
perfect person and I'm the fuck up, I'm whatever it is. Pardon
Yeah.
my language, it just came
No,
out.
that's
But
fine. Totally. I get it.
so I really appreciate the delicateness with which you said, I some people say, are you predisposed that we all have a core wounding? And I would encourage you to be like, yes.
I appreciate that.
Because I
Well, when you think,
believe.
yeah, I mean, when you live enough life, everyone's experienced a disappointment, a rejection, abandonment, uh, wounding through power, being obstructed from your worldview or philosophy, or feeling connected to community. So I think it's universal, like you're saying, our experience as humans. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama does a Facebook Live each week. And last night he was talking about our sameness and our connection to each other. And as the endorser of my book, His Holiness really resonates closely to my heart and his teachings about compassion. And that's where my work bridges the wounding. Like, the healing is found through self-compassion and self-forgiveness. I write a lot about the layers of, I think, unforgiveness we harbor against ourselves, John Jacob, that it's like
Yes.
layer upon layer. And this is an excavation that we're going through daily to really learn to love ourselves more deeply. And then it frees us to love others and be of
Yes.
service and be happy and really plug into our meaning and purpose.
I want to talk to you about um, empathy and healing through forgiveness. But before I ask that question, how did you get an endorsement from the Dalai Lama? That's such a coup, such a
Thank
beautiful
you.
recognition of your work. Tell us how that came about.
Thank you. I feel like you and your listeners will really get this. I set an intention and I brought it to spirit in my meditation.
Yeah.
And it took me about 2 years to align my vibration. For me, His Holiness represents compassion, like the epitome of loving kindness and
Yes.
compassion. And I felt led in my spiritual practice that my work to receive the endorsement was to match the vibration of
Mm.
loving kindness and compassion in my own life. And it took me a couple of years to clean up some of my shit, John Jacob, like some of the texts I send, some of the ways I treat telemarketers. Just to be honest, I could be short and abrupt and just forget the notion of compassion and loving kindness in certain
That's it.
settings. And I realized I just have to clean that shit up for His Holiness to receive, because I don't know how many emails his office gets a day, but certainly it took a couple years. And I really heard him say in meditation, send me your book. I want to read it. And
Mm.
that was a day I emailed the digital copy with a letter just about how much his work means to me. I went to his lecture in New Orleans several years ago, and it'd just be such an honor. It brings tears. If he would consider. And it was less than a month that he sent me the most beautiful letter of endorsement, really resonating with meditation as a tool for healing, as for compassion, bringing people together. And said he believes my book is going to benefit many.
Mm.
So it felt like it was just an alignment, a
I
vibration.
love the process that you went through. It is so in alignment. And it just, I'm kind of falling in love with you on this little interview here,
Thank
Miss Lisa.
you.
Like really this, that sincere intention, and then the realization, like you put your money where your mouth is. You
Mhm.
really walked the walk on that and said, if I'm going to vibrate at the level of someone to be received.
Yes,
Wow. And it's in alignment with spiritual principle, with the
it is.
law of
Yes,
vibration and frequency. The ancient,
absolutely.
this is ancient hermetic
It
principle that
is.
you're working
Yes,
with these laws, and and you
they
have a direct
work.
effect, and they work.
When you shift, and that's what my book is about, vibration and frequency. And we orbit certain patterns, our people we talk to each day, our routines, our habits. It's a vibrational frequency in orbit. And I learned in my life, I have to change to inhabit those higher frequencies of abundance and love and good things coming, not just by thinking positively. Well, that's a part. It's like genuinely feeling in and massaging, like changing and shifting yourself and how you interact with the world and others, that the universe reads that and then manifestation happens.
So this to me seems to be right in line with the healing through forgiveness and compassion.
Hmm.
Self-forgiveness and self-compassion, I'm assuming, is the primary action. Tell
Yes.
us more about that activity, because, and I'll just put this one thing, as you said, it's my habits, my daily habits, and the things I do carry a certain vibrational frequency, and if I want to up level, I need to really look at earnest at those things. Now, like I'm sure everybody has a habit or more than one that they're working on and
Yeah.
find it hard to shift it. And what happens to me is uh, I fall into self-recrimination when I'm
Okay.
unable to shift that. Right? So there's no compassion and no self-forgiveness around not meeting the standard of shifting this pattern. Please share with
Yes.
us
No,
your
I hear
insights
you.
on that.
This is such a wonderful point you're bringing up, because what I've learned through this process is that the universe loves us so fucking much. It wants to come out, like John, in our struggle, in our failure, which I don't believe in. I believe we're all, everything is meant, it comes through us, as us, life is living as us. So I don't see failure, or personally resonate with that word, that we're just so loved that we're on our path. And however, like, we don't get it wrong, and the universe is going to keep bringing opportunities, and if we're just open and want it. So for me, it's like how much we are loved, and when we're able to just start believing that even a little bit, it kind of cracks in those places that we harbor against ourselves, our judgments. And I've been learning to
Mm.
just release judgment of myself, like I'm doing the best I can, and most people are also. And that's what I really had to embrace, John Jacob, that most people are really doing the best. And when I started to see the best in them and focus on that, instead of maybe the minor infractions, what they didn't do or what they haven't done, the relationship started to change. It's like when you see others and yourself from the a strengths perspective, it all starts to feel better. What do you think?
I love the insight around recognizing how loved we are. Right, that is, to me, the biggest piece. There's a line in the Bible, I believe, or is it the Quran? I think it's the Bible. Um, uh, God's eyes are too pure to perceive inequity. You
Wow.
know, that there's this loving presence that doesn't see our faults, that
No.
only sees the perfection within us. And and so that, like, sense of love, loving kindness towards ourselves is that piece that is so missing. And now, how do you square that though with, all right, like you were in compulsive behavior around drugs, and you were saying during that time after Katrina, you had some addiction issues,
Yeah.
right? Now, you have to be loving and kind to yourself, but you also have to stop a particular habit,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So how there's that, okay, I'm loving, just doing the best I can, and the universe loves me anyway. And I really want to experience life free from this habit, liberated from this.
Yes. Yes, that's where I think the word kind of tough love came up for myself, and for clients I work with as well with addictions, that there's a point you can choose. I chose to make a decision to change, and it was painfully hard. It was so difficult. Like, a part of me didn't want it. Like, I felt like literally like nails on a chalkboard to change from addictive patterns. And that's why I just chose to go to Pensacola. What's the best feeling thing I can do? Knowing this is really hard. And it was to just leave New Orleans and go somewhere brand new, a beach, put myself in some tranquility on the weekends, which is when I was more vulnerable than the weekdays. And over time, it just started to change. So for me, I really believe in telling ourselves, like, you got to do some new things,
Mm.
to really ask yourself. Personal responsibility, like I mentioned earlier, is a big part of my work, that it takes just, you have to want it more than anything. You have to want the change and be willing to do anything for it to really happen for you in some cases.
Wow, I love that. Um, that's just really resonating with me because, of course, full disclosure, I'm working on my own compulsive behaviors right now.
Okay. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so and the recognition is like, boy, I'm really doing good, right? Like, you got,
Yes.
like, I do breath work in the morning. I do spinal flexation, and then meditation, and then my prayer time, affirmative prayer, and my mental,
Yeah.
affirmative mind treatments. And I'm moving my body every day, or doing cardio, or doing movement, and I'm doing cold plunges, and I'm working full time, and I'm taking
You're
classes,
doing amazing.
right? And yet there's still these compulsive behaviors that keep coming up around
Right.
cigarettes.
Yeah.
And even if
Yeah.
I can get myself to, all right, I'm just going to have one at night, after it's all over. And
Right.
but there's still what I loved about the earlier conversation is there's those activities have a certain vibration, and I can
Mm-hmm.
feel the vibrational difference. And so I'm still playing in that self-recrimination. Don't have to strive for perfection.
Right.
It's not a all or nothing game. Just keep inching forward. And then there's the, yeah, but you
You
fell.
know,
Yeah, but.
I would say what's coming up in a situation like that, if you're going to have the cigarette, I would say with consciousness, have this fucking cigarette, enjoy the hell out of it, really let yourself enjoy the pleasure of it. Because otherwise, you're giving yourself kind of a treat, but then you're not letting yourself enjoy it. And, we don't have to be perfect. You're doing so many healthy things. The percentage of health is so much larger and higher than the percentage of lack of health or unhealth. So I think if you're going to do something that you don't feel so good about, but you're working on it, let yourself enjoy it, and then
Yeah.
get back on the path afterwards.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be honest, in there, because I didn't want to be like, well, other people have compulsive behaviors, not me.
Right.
um,
Right.
we were talking about the Chiron effect earlier, and
Yeah.
the effect of um, the effect of planets and energies on us. And I wanted to bring forth this other idea of the spiritual principle that you illustrated in your connection with the Dalai Lama, right?
Okay.
There is
Yeah.
a definite, like, you created and caused something to
Yes.
occur, you with a definite effect. You set an intention and called it back.
Yes.
And so there's that agency that we have. And yet in psychoastrology, in psycho or astrocartography is
Mhm.
another part, right, where you're using the birth chart to see places
Right.
that where the planets align for you to live.
Yes.
um, how do we how do you, as a practitioner of both, right, agency, there's a lawful universe that you can use, and
Hmm.
yet there are these planetary influences, there are these other other bodies of energy that can have influence over us. So in my mind, there's either one source, one power, one life. It's the life of God. It's my life. It's your life, and that's the only power. No other
Yes.
power. But then there's Mercury and Gatorade, or
Right.
or
Right.
or the Chiron effect.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
My personal take is that free will is what dominates. And I love from Abraham Hicks, one connected to source is more powerful than millions who are not. And I believe that when we're connected to our source, to the divine, to just that mind, that universal, anything is possible for us when we line up in our thoughts and our beliefs and our actions. And so for me, even psychoastrology and Chiron's core wounds, it's helped me to heal some of my deepest wounding and my value and worth and believing in myself. And then from here, I can take it and be unlimited and really fulfill my purpose and the things I want to experience in my life. So I see them going hand in hand in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I use my free will to transform my core wounds and use the laws of the universe and the energy of the universe to support me.
And yet there are these influences at the same time, but we
Sure.
have so you're saying sort of the
To
Abraham Hicks
transform.
quote,
Yeah.
that connection to source does override any other planetary
That's what I
influence.
believe. That's my personal belief.
I love it. I love it. I I I would love to ask you this question.
Yeah.
Now, you said earlier that you don't believe in the word failure,
Yeah.
but I also believe that the only real failure is quitting, right? Is stopping. There's no failure in not meeting your goal. There's no failure
Right.
in not succeeding in the outcome you wanted. The only failure is giving up, right?
Yes.
So I would ask, but in the general terminology of failure, like times where you set an intention and it didn't come out as beautifully as the
Yeah.
intention. So kind of work with me on the word failure. What are your most cherished failures?
Actually, that's such a good question. I love the way you asked it. And for me, I was just thinking of this the other day because I thought about kind of reflecting what's been something that didn't turn out. If I'm really gonna, let me just put aside some of this thinking and such, and like what's something that happened that really bummed you out, Lisa? And I thought it was an endorsement I've wanted so dearly for my book is from Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
And I've interviewed her on my podcast. We have a resonance, and I was told no on several occasions, not by her, but by someone in her, circle, and that I had to work with to seek the endorsement. And that was really when I tell you, such a disappointment. And I felt at one point like a failure. And when that popped up in my mind the other day, and I was like, but think about what happened. If Marianne would have endorsed my book, I would have stopped there. But when Marianne didn't endorse me, I brought it to spirit in meditation. And I said, I want to take this higher. And like, that's when the Dalai Lama came to mind. And I was like, oh my God, what that would mean to me as a person for his holiness to read my work. It was like, oh my God, universe, like let's do it. And that's when I started to sit and align for those couple of years. And so even and Marianne told me in person, Lisa, like she's like, I'm proud of you. You don't need my endorsement. I mean, she basically gave it to me verbally. But I really believe what I thought was such a disappointment and failure, not having her written endorsement, got me to reach for his holiness. And how beautiful is that? So I would just offer to viewers and listeners, when something doesn't turn out, like look for what maybe evolves from it, or align yourself with that. Like I wanted, to see it differently.
And it nudged you to something. Indeed, you took it
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama is
Yeah.
not bad.
Yeah. So that's what comes to mind as you ask me that question.
Beautiful, beautiful. We started a little late on
Yeah.
our call, and there's so much more that I want to ask you, but I have one last question to ask
Sure.
you. And it's kind of my standard question at the end, and I'm just going to ask it straight. So typically, if you were in my shoes, and actually you were in my shoes,
I know, interviewing you.
right?
Hmm.
What question would you want me to ask that I haven't asked?
Oh, that's so good. Um, I would love for you to ask, what's my intention for this whole thing unfolding with the Chiron effect and just being on
Beautiful.
your show? This is brand new for me.
Yes, please. What is your intention with the unfolding of the Chiron effect and being on the show and all these new things that are bubbling up for you?
Yeah, John Jacob, I'm so excited to be able to get with people in this way on these video sessions and just let people know there's another way to heal, that like you are good enough. And I just am so excited for people to fall in love with themselves and then with
Yeah.
each other, and like don't restrict your love. Like I notice even in my life, I'll pull back if I really care about somebody, and it's like, don't do that. Like let your heart express itself. That's when we're really the happiest. And I
Mm.
know that my work can help you do that. Really open your heart to everything that you want in your life. So I'm just so excited for people to fall in love with themselves and with their lives.
I love that. I love that you said, I'm excited for people to fall in love with themselves. What a beautiful mission statement.
Thank
What a
you.
beautiful, beautiful mission statement. And I just want to thank you, Lisa, to hear your authenticity, your genuine open-heartedness, your devotion and reverence to the work that you do, and the clear integrity that you have in not only doing your own personal practice, but in your teachings. All of it came through so beautifully in this time together. And like I said, I'm just fallen in love with you. Thank you.
It's
Thank you. Thank
mutual.
you.
Thank you, John Jacob. Such an honor.
My great pleasure. Peace and richest blessings. And I look forward to the next time that we get to talk.
Me too.
Thank you
Bye.
again. Bye-bye.